you know, it was like a car crash because I had already been having these thoughts, and then it was like, are you going to do this? Right? I had just started at this firm, um, and it wasn't like I could avoid the stain that is Donald Trump. At the heart of this case was Jose Andres saying, "I'm not going to build a restaurant in this hotel because of the racist comments you said." And they wanted me to go there and say, well, the racist comments he said weren't that bad. And I know why they picked me. I was the only black attorney there, and they thought that that would be a good thing to present to the court. And it's fine if you record this. I don't mind. Um, and that was something they wanted to present to the court. And so I was sort of, faced with this choice. Here I was. I thought I made it. I just bought a house. I have my daughter at the time was 1. I bought the house maybe 3 months before, and they were telling me this. And what I decided to do was to quit my job. I went in and said, I can't do this, and I quit. And, you know, the partner ridiculed me for this and said, you got to defend anyone and everything. But I saw something in the candidate Donald Trump that was so abhorrent to me that I couldn't live with myself defending someone like this. And so it was something I had, when I read a lot of history and I think back to the people, who was Hitler's dry cleaners? Like, did they not see how reprehensible this person was? And that's how I really felt about the candidate. That may have seemed like hyperbole at the time, but looking at the events today, I feel that I was right. And I went and I quit my job, and luckily I was able to get another job working for Congressman Elijah Cummings, who was one of the greatest men I've ever met. And I was counsel on the House Oversight Committee, advising all the Democrats on that committee on issues from tech policy to investigations. And we never thought that Donald Trump, the candidate, would ever become Donald Trump, the president. But I'm reflecting on the day that the day after he won the presidency, we had to go into work that day, and it was like a bomb had hit DC because everyone was just sort of walking around stunned. At least, even the Republicans, really, it was just sort of a surprise that this happened. And Congressman Cummings asked all of us to come to the Democratic hearing room, and he wasn't there, but he called in on the conference room. And he said to us, and I can't believe it today, but he said to us, we are about to engage in a fight for the very soul of our democracy. And he used that refrain constantly after that, but I think that was the first time he said, we are fighting for the soul of our democracy. And so I went into work every day with that sort of in my head, that this was the frame, that we are fighting for the soul of our democracy, and we can't let any ethical lapse slide because our democracy is so fragile that it will go off a cliff. That was his firm belief. And seeing this today, I know he understood today. He may not have been able to see it, but he understood what could happen. And so I had the privilege of working with someone like that, but I was so frustrated that I wasn't doing more, that I got more involved in my local community. I went to the Democratic Party, and I went to the NAACP. And to be completely honest with you, I ended up on the steering committee of the Democratic Party, and I was disappointed in what I was seeing because I saw people who did not seem to understand the moment we were in. They didn't seem to understand that people don't have health care. People don't know from check to check what's going to happen to them. And I understood that because I didn't grow up in privilege. I understood that my parents were able to make a lifestyle and living for me because they had the privilege of being in a labor union that fought for them to have certain rights. So these things are what were kind of my guiding principles as I was doing this. And so when I joined the Fairfax Democrats, I joined the NAACP, I started picking fights that people told us we could never win. One of the first fights I picked was Jeb Stuart High School. And I said, why would I be in a county where this is supposed to be so progressive and blue and everything else, and my daughter has to go past Jeb Stuart and Robert Lee High School? And we fought to get those names changed, and we won. And we were told we would never be able to do it. We also got substantive changes, like we changed the first responder system here in Fairfax County, where now the police don't come out for every incident. They have a mental health crisis. We fought to get data on this. We fought on all the things that we are seeing here today. But I saw that if you are willing to fight, if you understand the circumstances that we are in and you organize in your community, you can make change. And we see this time and time again. The change often does not happen from politicians because often they are there to get elected. They just want, and I know the irony of me saying this, I do get that. But I am coming from someone who was a grassroots community organizer in every sense of the word. I grew my NAACP chapter from 300 members to 1,400 members in a year and a half. And I did that by going out in the community, winning on these issues and changing people's mind on them and getting them to understand. And the only reason I'm running for office has been, I used to say the reason I was running was the pandemic, but it's more than that. We have not had a normal month in this country since last February, 1 year ago. Ever since March of last year, we've been either from crisis to crisis in a pandemic and a racial justice crisis. We have just been going from turmoil to crisis and back again. And this is why I'm running, because we are running out of time. If it's the environmental crisis, we are running out of time. We do not have time for compromise in a lot of issues. A lot of these folks that are running for office are telling you, I deserve a promotion. Or they're saying, I'm going to reach across to the other side of the aisle and bring them along. We have to realize in our democracy, and this goes back to Georgia, people organized there and made change, and they won those Senate seats because they were on the ground fighting to do it. But what we see in America is not that there's more Republicans than Democrats. It's because our states are gerrymandered to hell, and they don't have the right to vote, and their vote is suppressed. And we're not going to have a progressive movement that does not bring along Black people. They have to be in the movement, whether it's environmental, whether it's labor. They are the canaries in the coal mine. They are hit first and often hit harder. And so I have been working in these communities. I have been doing this work. I have worked on the Hill and advised members of Congress on policy. I do tech policy now. I understand the issues that we're going to face, in the future. I understand the issues that we're facing now. But I understand that it takes people going into these communities and organizing folks and getting them to understand that you cannot have just a racial justice struggle. You cannot have just a working class labor struggle. You cannot have just an environmental struggle. These are all interconnected. And until we come together and push and fight on these issues, because we are fighting, and the other side understands that. They are fighting for something that's undemocratic. They are fighting for an America that used to stifle certain voices. We have to be fighting equally as hard on the other way to not only to bring some people along, but to fight back against this vision of America where we can somehow get some middle ground on healthcare. There's no middle ground on healthcare. You have to have Medicare for all. You got to have healthcare for every single American. We can't do it here at the state level. We can try to expand, but we have to do this. We can't. And I don't know if some of you, I had an article in the Washington Post last week on right to work, repealing right to work, and why we need to do that and the racist history of that. And we can share that in the chat. But these are the issues that we have to win on because we're running out of time. And there's no longer a question of electoral politics of winning and losing. We're talking about people's lives. We're talking about people's lives, and we're talking about the future of our earth. And to me, it's so obvious. And then I feel that my election is not about 2021. It's about being a leader statewide to build a progressive movement for the next 10 years to change this direction where we're going. Because what we saw today was disgusting, but it was it didn't happen suddenly. This was happening for years. This has been going on for years. And if you look at the people behind this, the Bill Barrs, the Ken Cuccinellis, they came out of Virginia. And so we have to make sure that here in Virginia, we are promoting leaders that understand the issue that we're in, that are willing to fight this, who have the experience in the community. And that's what I feel I have. And that's why I'm running for this office. So I know I said I wouldn't go into a stump in this speech and everything else, but I guess I sort of did. But I want to have a conversation with you all. I want to meet with you because, I think a lot of things that Bernie stands for and the progressive movement, I agree with, and we're on the same accord. So I wanted to make sure, and of course on my website, Perryman for Virginia, I have my entire platform up there which I talk about the moratorium on fossil fuels. I talk about the importance of these issues, and I try to have a really substantive issue-based campaign, because that's what we need to do. We need to be pushing on the issues that we can't compromise on, that are going to bring empower Virginians. Often I say my campaign, in my stump speech, I say my campaign is about the E's: education, equity, economics. But there's another E, is empowerment. We are trying to empower people and make them live better lives. There's no reason that we should be in a government that cannot distribute a vaccine, but seems to be able to put down peaceful protests. I used to say put down protests, but they are selective in their ability to do that. So with that, I will stop, and I thank you for having me, and I really appreciate it. This is a weird day to be here, but I'm happy to be here nonetheless.